2 books by the same author. Let me tell you about them. Stay tuned. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is Book Talks with Miss Thomas and I am Miss Thomas. If you are new here and you like hearing about books, especially in the case of this particular playlist, Christian books, then please subscribe. And if you are returning, then welcome back. So I want to talk about a new author that I am really enjoying. And that new author is Carrie Stuart Parks. Now, I first started reading this book, Fragments of Fear, and I could not put it down. I began reading it and I finished reading it in the same day. I mean, I truly was just hooked from the very beginning all the way to the end. It was really fantastic. And I enjoyed it so much, I thought, you know what? Katie from Paperbacks and Ponytails is doing this readathon. Why don't I make a video about this particular author, since that's prompt number 2? And I think that Carrie Stuart Parks, the author of Fragments of Fear, is now my favorite author, and especially my favorite Christian author. But this is it is not light or fluffy, but it is wholesome. There's nothing objectionable about it. So it's very clean, but it's also very riveting. So I definitely recommend Fragments of Fear, and I liked it so much that I thought, you know what? Why don't I give her a try again? I happen to also have Relative Silence. So I'm going to review both of those books for you today and tell you what I think of them. Well, I've already told you what I think of them. If you saw my short that I did Sunday to sort of give you a sneak peek about Carrie Stuart Park books, then I don't tell you which books, but you can go ahead and check out that short if you're interested. And that's just a really quick synopsis of both books in less than 1 minute. But let me tell you the details of why you must go out and read both of these books right now. So I'm going to start with Fragments of Fear. Fragments of Fear is the story of Tavish. See my notes. The story of Tavish. And Tavish is an artist. She's a painter. She's also quite wealthy in her own right. Her grandmother left her a huge fortune, and that fortune is being overseen by Tavish's mother. And so, as you can imagine, Tavish and her mom don't have the greatest relationship. You're sort of questioning that relationship throughout the book. The story begins with Tavish's funeral of her fiance. She was engaged to a man who presumably committed suicide. That's what the police believe. She believes it was a murder. And so she tells the police, you know, it wasn't a suicide, it's a murder. And the police just think she's really upset and she's grieving. She was the one who found him. And so they already think she's crazy. And that was one thing I love most about this book. It was very almost like Hitchcock, you know. You're throughout the book wondering, is she crazy? Is there really, you know, why does everyone else think she's crazy? She's definitely not crazy though, because the book is telling this story of what she's actually seeing and experiencing, but no one believes her. So then, she gets a call from this really aggressive person at an animal shelter. And he says, we have your dog. You need to come get your dog or we're going to put it down. She doesn't have a dog. So she tries to explain that. And the man says, look, there's a microchip that says this is your dog. Come get the dog or we're going to kill the dog. So, you know, she's concerned about the dog. She doesn't want to be responsible for that. So she goes to try and rescue this dog. And she does recognize the dog because she's a painter. She has actually painted a portrait of this dog with the dog's owner. And so she goes ahead and pays the bill because she is really wealthy. And she's going to take the dog back to the owner. So she goes to the owner's house. She knows where he lives because she's painted the portrait. And when she gets to the house, the door's unlocked. So she goes in and she finds the owner of the dog has been tortured and murdered. Really gruesome. Now, the book doesn't get too specific. Thank you very much, Ms. Parks, for that. I don't really want the details, but we do know that the owner of this dog has been tortured and murdered. So, and the house has been searched. So she frantically leaves with the dog. She's afraid and she leaves. And as she's leaving, she passes a police officer. So she turns around to go and tell the police officer what she's seen. But fortunately, before she gets out of the car and the officer sees her, she sees the officer putting the body in his trunk. And she knows that's not right. There's something a little off about that. The police officers don't put murdered bodies in their trunks without, a crime scene and other officers. So she leaves and she tries to report the crime to the police. Well, first she stops at a neighbor's. Well, no, I think the police officer saw her at that point and started chasing her and starts shooting at her car. So she finds refuge at a neighbor's house, and this man talks with her and sort of helps her hide from the whatever that was. Was that a police officer? Was that when someone posing as a police officer? This neighbor hides her and listens to her tell the story. And then when the coast is clear, she goes to the police and she tells them what she's seen. Of course, they don't believe her because she's the crazy lady who's going around saying that her fiance who committed suicide was murdered. So they don't believe her. And her own mother doesn't believe her. Her own mother treats her like she's got some problems and tries to have her see doctors and take medicines and things. So it's almost like gaslighting. If you've ever heard of gaslighting, you really get a vibe in this book that she's being gaslighted. There's something just so creepy about it. And I couldn't put it down. I loved that aspect of the book. So then, people start dying. She's got the dog. She's trying to figure out what to do about the dog. And there's a really sweet connection between her and the dog. And she is, concerned about her safety now because somebody saw her and is shooting at her car. So she's worried about her safety. She's worried about the dog. She doesn't know what's happened. She doesn't know who to trust. And there's just all these different layers to the plot. And like I say, I couldn't put it down. I mean, from beginning to end in one day, I was just hooked. I want to check my notes and see if there's anything else I want to talk about. I want to tell you a little bit about the faith content because it is a Christian book. It is marketed as a Christian book. If you saw my review of Cul-de-sac War, I enjoyed that book. I thought it was clean. It is going to make it onto my Philippians 4 list. If you're not familiar, I am reading books and trying to create a list. My goal is to have over 100 books on this list that I can give to a Christian library with a check for $500 and say, I would like you to add some engaging young adult books for the young adult Christian reader or adult books, but clean, wholesome. They don't have to be specifically Christian, but they can't be in opposition to the Christian views for this young adult Christian library. And I want to pay $500 and say, here's some money. I'd like you to add some engaging books for the Christian young adult reader to your library. So Cul-de-sac Wars is going to make that list. It has been. I did read it. I enjoyed it. I will approve it and put it on the Philippians 4 list. But I did mention in my review of Cul-de-sac War that it wasn't really Christian. I mean, it was clean, and that's good. I'm not requiring that a book be Christian to make the list, but don't call it Christian if you're going to sit down to a meal and not even say grace. So, and throughout the book, there was that. I was really frustrated that, there were even meals described in that book where no one even says grace, and it's supposed to be a Christian book. So the main character, Tavish, in this book, she's not a believer, but she does encounter an FBI agent, Sawyer Price, and Sawyer is a believer. And so Sawyer does say grace, and he does pray, and he does say he has a relationship with the Lord. So this one has a little bit more faith content, but it's not like thwack. Let me tell you what you should believe. But this one did have spiritual content, and it had faith. And it was very engaging, and I would definitely recommend it to the young adult Christian reader. I immensely enjoyed it. And I enjoyed it so much that I thought, okay, well, maybe I have a new favorite author. So I tried Relative Silence, also by Carrie Stuart Parks. And I loved this one too. I will confess, I did not love this one as much as this one. This one is my favorite book I've read in a long time. This one was quite good. I would say 4 stars, where this one's like a 6 out of 5 stars. But this one, Relative Silence, is the story of Piper. And Piper is very, very wealthy. And the story begins when Piper is in her home, on her private island, when her husband is going off somewhere on the boat, and she says, well, here, take our daughter Dove, because I need to get some things done around the house. So when the husband goes off on the boat with Dove, he doesn't want to bring their daughter Dove. He wants to go off on his own, but she insists. And then the boat is hijacked and Dove dies. She apparently drowned when the boat was hijacked. So that's a really tragic story. That's the prologue of Relative Silence. And then the story picks up 15 years later when she's in the restaurant having a meal with her friend, and an active shooter just opens fire in the restaurant. And this man right next to her, he sees her, and he sees that she's about to be shot, and so he tackles her and saves her life in the restaurant. And so they both survive the shooter, and she wants to thank him, and the press is all over it. So she takes him to her island with her family. She has since divorced her husband, but he still lives on the island as well, or I guess he's visiting the island. They're having like some kind of vacation together. It's a stockholders meeting where they're going to discuss the family business. And so she takes this man who saved her life to the island as well. And there's plenty of room. It's, a mansion. So the two of them form a unique friendship. It is a clean book, so there's a bit of romance, but nothing happens. They're just attracted to each other, and she's divorced and he is widowed. So it's perfectly clean romance in that sense. And then, you start to really wonder, did someone try to kill her? And is that somehow connected to the death of her daughter? There is a reporter who's following them around, causing a lot of trouble for them, and saying that Piper's family is cursed, that there's this curse that's affecting Piper, and that's why her daughter died. And it's just gut-wrenching. I can't imagine why a reporter would, oh, your daughter was killed because of a curse. I mean, just the horror of how callous, the press is, and how people treat each other in this book, in light of the fact that, people are dying, and there wasn't a lot of remorse for that, or people grieving for that. There wasn't a lot of respect for that from some people. But it was a Christian book, and I do want to talk about the faith content. So Piper, she becomes friends. She's attracted to Tucker, and they start with a friendship, the man who rescued her in the restaurant. His name is Tucker. And Tucker is a believer. And again, with the grace, there's definitely, when they sit down to a meal, Tucker is, he closes his eyes and his lips are moving, and Piper thinks, oh no, he's a religious person, and she asks him, are you one of those religious people? And again, he says, I have a relationship with God, yes. And so I thought that was interesting that Carrie Stuart Parks, in both books, talks about the relationship with God in the talks about the relationship with God when dealing with the spiritual content. I thought that was nice. I appreciated that. And Tucker also attempts to witness to Piper at one point, and he says to her that, you know, the way that you grieve the loss of your daughter, God feels that way about you. And I thought that was really a nice way to approach faith. As a mom, I have a deeper understanding of God's love for me through the way I love my children. So I appreciated that about the book as well. So checking my notes. So as Piper is hiding from this person who may have killed her and hiding from the press, we find out that there are lots of people that she can't necessarily trust. We're not really sure. Somebody does seem to be causing trouble and killing off various members of her family. It does seem that the shooter in the restaurant was targeting Piper, and so she's trying to figure out, is someone trying to kill me? Did they kill my daughter? Did they kill other members of my family? And why would that be? And Tucker agrees to help her. And so the two of them join forces, and he is a believer, she is not. And so there's that aspect of the book. That seems to be something that Carrie Stuart Parks does in her books. In both of these books, the female character is not a believer, and the male comes along and tries to bring faith into the life of the female character. So I thought that was very nice approach, and I enjoyed that as well. All right, so those are my book reviews of Fragments of Fear and Relative Silence. I really enjoyed these books. This is definitely my new favorite author, and I went ahead and got online and checked out what other books are written by this author, and I look forward to reading them. So thank you so much for listening. If you have any books for my Philippians 4 project that you can recommend, please go ahead and put them in the comments below. And if no one has told you, you are fearfully and wonderfully made, and you are so loved by the creator of this universe. Bye for now.